Someone stabbed this man 100,000 years ago. A sharp stone edge moves through the dry grass. One young adult turns too late. The blow catches the left side of his face, slices across a lower tooth, and bites into the bone of his jaw. He falls. The person holding the weapon steps back. We do not know who struck him. We do not know what the argument was about. We do not even know with certainty that this scene happened exactly this way. But 100,000 years later, the victim's jaw still carries the mark. This is not the oldest murder mystery. In fact, the wound did not kill him. The bone began to rebuild itself around the cut, proving that he survived for a significant period afterward. The mystery is stranger than a murder. It asks who attacked one of the earliest Homo sapiens outside Africa, why the victim lived, who helped him recover, and why his body was eventually placed carefully in a cave used for the dead. The individual is known as Qafzeh 25. His partial skeleton was found in 1979 at Qafzeh Cave, near Nazareth in what is now Israel. The bones were so fragile and compressed that excavators removed them inside a block of sediment and finished the work under controlled conditions. Most of the lower legs had already been lost during earlier digging in 1934. What remained looked damaged, incomplete, and silent. For decades, the most important clue was easy to miss. Qafzeh Cave is not an ordinary campsite. Its Middle Paleolithic layers date to roughly 92,000 to 145,000 years ago. Archaeologists found sparse stone tools, small animal remains, and only a few hearths. Most daily work probably happened outside. The cave and the terrace in front of it appear to have served another purpose. At least 27 early humans were found there, including an unusually large number of children and adolescents. Many had been deliberately buried. Imagine the landscape when Qafzeh 25 was alive. This was not a frozen European ice age. Dry grasslands spread across the hills. Gazelles and other animals crossed open ground. Small groups gathered plants, shaped flint, carried water, butchered meat, protected children, and moved between shade and sun. The cave mouth watched over the landscape, but the living did not crowd deep inside it. The dead were brought closer to the stone. Qafzeh 25 was a young adult. The skeleton's sex cannot be established with certainty, although the robust skull and jaw resemble male individuals from the same site. For our reconstruction, picture a lean young hunter with wavy dark hair, a short beard, a faded red ochre headband, a light hide wrap, and a flint point at his belt. He is not a primitive monster. His face belongs to our own species. If he stood in modern clothing at a distance, you might not look twice. One afternoon, something changes. Perhaps two people argue beside a butchered gazelle. Perhaps food, a damaged tool, a relationship, an insult or fear between groups turns a tense moment into violence. Perhaps the wound comes during hunting instead. Archaeology preserves the injury, not the conversation. There is no name for the attacker, no witness statement, and no weapon left inside the bone. What the jaw preserves is precise. A sharp object grazed the crown of the lower left third premolar and then struck the upper edge of the mandible. The linear mark runs for about 9 millimeters along the jaw, with roughly 7 millimeters affecting the tooth. Its walls converge into an overall V-shape, the kind of groove a sharp edge can produce. Bone and dentine were removed. The tooth's pulp chamber, however, was not reached. That detail may have helped save him. A wound through the face would bleed, swell, and make chewing painful. Exposed tissue could become infected. But because the cut missed the tooth's living pulp, researchers found no evidence of infection caused by the injury. The young adult could breathe, he could drink, he could swallow soft food. The body began the slow work of repair. In our reconstruction, he returns to the group with blood running down his left jaw. One person supports his shoulder, another rinses the cut with water, an elder crushes soft food in a stone bowl, while the injured man sits beneath a hide shade. We cannot prove these exact actions. Healing alone does not prove constant nursing. Yet surviving a painful facial injury becomes easier when other people share food, water, shelter, and time. The jaw itself records survival. Around the lesion, the bone became porous where cells removed damaged tissue and built new material. The edges thickened and projected outward, consistent with callus formation. These changes happen in a living body, not in a skeleton broken after burial. The strike was not damage from an excavator's tool. It was not pressure from the earth. Qafzeh 25 was alive when the sharp edge hit, and alive long enough for healing to begin. The left side of the face offers another clue. Modern forensic studies often find facial blows on the victim's left side, partly because most attackers are right-handed during face-to-face confrontations. A right hand swings or thrusts toward the left side of the person opposite it. That pattern cannot identify the attacker and cannot prove violence by itself. But when a left side facial wound is also shaped like sharp force trauma, interpersonal violence becomes more plausible. Now change the scene. A hunter runs beside a wounded gazelle. He slips as another person's flint-tipped spear moves forward. The point glances across his jaw. An accident can create a sharp wound too. The researchers do not pretend otherwise. They say an accidental cause cannot be ruled out. The honest answer is not that we solved the crime. It is that the wound fits a human attack better than the alternatives, while the final moment remains beyond recovery. Sharp force injuries are extraordinarily rare in the Middle Paleolithic record. Broken bones and blunt impacts are easier to find. A penetrating rib wound on the Shanidar 3 Neanderthal has also been debated as possible interpersonal violence. Other clear cases become more common much later. If the interpretation of Qafzeh 25 is correct, this could be the earliest documented sharp force trauma yet recognized in the archaeological record. The clue survived because modern researchers looked at an old fossil in a new way. They examined the jaw macroscopically, under a microscope, and with high-resolution microcomputed tomography. Earlier scans had not revealed the pathology. The new scan used a resolution about 18 times higher, allowing the team to separate sediment, bone, enamel, and dentine without cutting the fossil apart. On the digital slices, the wound became a landscape. The groove changed shape as it crossed tooth and bone. A missing patch of dentine formed a step. Thickened margins showed repair. The scan also revealed a hidden cavity inside another premolar, sealed beneath a thin outer layer of enamel. Qafzeh 25 had survived violence or accident, but he also lived with the ordinary biological problems of being human: damaged enamel, tooth decay, pain, and vulnerability. Then there is the burial. Qafzeh 25's bones remained in anatomical position, even though the skeleton had been crushed and fractured after death. Researchers found no weathering, carnivore tooth marks, trampling, or root damage on the surfaces they could study. The body appears to have decomposed in a filled space. Nobody left him exposed for hyenas. Someone placed him in the earth near other people. The cave already held powerful evidence of care and death. A child known as Qafzeh 11 had suffered a severe head injury, survived with likely long-term consequences, and received distinctive funerary treatment. Other children at the site lived with serious developmental conditions. We should be careful with the word compassion, because bones cannot reveal every relationship. Still, these people repeatedly survived injury and buried members of their group with intention. That makes Qafzeh 25 more than a victim. His story contains two opposite human abilities in the same body. One person may have raised a sharp weapon toward his face. Other people accepted him afterward, shared a social world with him while the wound healed, and eventually placed his body among their dead. Violence did not arrive after civilization. Neither did care. We may never know whether the attacker was a stranger, a rival hunter, a relative, or nobody at all. We cannot know whether the injury came from anger, panic, a hunting mistake, or a brief struggle that ended as quickly as it began. We cannot know how long Qafzeh 25 lived after the wound. The researchers can identify healing, but they cannot turn bone growth into an exact calendar. What we do know is astonishing. More than 90,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens in the Levant lived in groups complicated enough to injure, support, remember, and bury one another. They were vulnerable to cavities and accidents. They could make edges sharp enough to enter bone. They could also recognize a body as belonging to someone, even after that person's voice had disappeared. At sunset, return to the cave terrace. The young man in our reconstruction touches the scar on his left jaw. Children carry baskets past him. A flint napper strikes a new edge from stone. Years later, careful hands lower a body into the ground. Thousands of generations pass. In a laboratory, a glowing scan traces a 9 millimeter line through tooth and bone. The attacker is gone. The argument is gone. The scar remains, carrying one of humanity's oldest unsolved stories into the light.